You fell in love with the reflection the other person showed you, not with yourself. You fell in love with the echo of your emptiness, not with the sound of your own voice. And when that reflection faded, you felt yourself fade too, because no one teaches us how to tell the difference between love and dependence. No one warns us that sometimes what we call love is just fear with a good memory, fear of not being chosen, fear of not being seen, fear of disappearing when the other person stops looking at us. What broke you wasn't the person, it was the pedestal where you placed your worth. You got used to measuring your dignity by the messages that came or didn't come, by the replies that soothed your anxiety or set it on fire. You lived dependent on external validation, believing you weren't enough without it. But what you lost wasn't love, it was control over yourself. The power you gave away when you mistook attention for affection, desire for importance, presence for promise. No one teaches us how to be desirable through calmness. We're taught to compete, to chase, to show interest so we don't seem cold. But no one teaches us how to hold a gaze without fear, to wait without anxiety, to stay without demanding. Calmness, however, speaks a language few understand. It doesn't shout. It doesn't persuade. It doesn't beg. It simply is. And that state of being without need, in a world that trades everything, becomes magnetic. Because the human soul doesn't fall in love with noise, it falls in love with serenity. Not with the one who begs for attention, but with the one who stands whole. We live surrounded by urgency. Everyone wants to be loved, but few know how to be alone without feeling invisible. We crave instant answers, constant reassurance, perpetual contact. But true love, like every virtue, grows in the space where you let it breathe. When you stop needing to be seen, you begin to shine. When you stop trying to please, you become pleasing. Because need repels and calm attracts. It's an invisible law, but as precise as gravity. Every time you give in to the urge to text, to explain, to prove your interest too soon, you break the spell. The soul feels the tremor of someone afraid to lose. Anxiety shows, even in silence. That desperate energy whispers what your words try to hide. I'm not enough if you don't choose me. But nothing kills desire faster than fear disguised as love. Calmness, on the other hand, speaks with the voice of power. It says, I know who I am. If you stay, good. If you leave, also good. That kind of energy can't be faked. It's born of inner mastery. It's the art of being present without being dependent, of giving without expecting, of loving without needing. And that quiet, steady mastery is the highest form of human allure. Stoicism teaches precisely that. Balance between feeling and control. Marcus Aurelius wrote it plainly, your power lies in your power, mind, not in the circumstances. And love is one of those circumstances. Because to love isn't to lose control, it's to offer who you are without losing your center. It's to share from fullness, not from emptiness. Whoever masters their need, masters their magnetism. There's a magnetic force in those who don't seek to be understood, but who already understand themselves. You can see it in the way they move, in the silence that doesn't feel heavy, in the gaze that doesn't demand. Their calmness becomes a mirror in which the world recognizes itself and pauses. Because in an age of constant urgency, serenity has become a luxury one few can afford. And it's not about becoming distant, but about returning to yourself. About learning the art of containing without suppressing, desiring without overflowing, watching without losing your center. The Stoic doesn't deny love, he elevates it. He doesn't run from feeling, he chooses when and how much to give. And when he does, he doesn't lose control, he perfects it. Because he knows that what doesn't depend on him cannot steal his peace. Once you understand that, the game changes. You no longer write hoping for a reply, you write because you have something to say. You no longer love to be seen, you love because your love has become your noblest reflection. If the other stays, you're grateful. If they leave, you bless them. Because worth isn't begged for, it's embodied. And when you embody it, the world begins to move at your rhythm. Calmness isn't coldness, it's maturity. It's not disinterest, it's self-control. It's the beauty of looking at love without fearing its end. It's not begging for presence but offering it. It's understanding that power doesn't lie in conquering, but in remaining serene. Because in the end, the soul doesn't fall in love with the one who promises everything, but with the one who doesn't need to promise anything. If you're here, it's because you already sense it. Because part of you is tired. Tired of insisting where there's no reciprocity, of proving what the other can't see, of justifying your feelings to avoid being too much. This is your turning point, the moment you shift from seeking love to becoming love, from needing validation to radiating certainty, from waiting to be chosen to choosing yourself. Listen carefully. The following words are not techniques to make someone fall in love, they're paths to awakening. When you understand this, when you stop seeking external mirrors to see yourself, when you choose yourself with calmness and without fear, you'll discover the secret that changes the entire human dynamic. No one can resist the energy of someone at peace, because the one who no longer needs becomes irresistible, and the one who loves without depending becomes free. Before we begin, I want you to declare your commitment by writing in the comments, "From today, I don't seek to be chosen. I choose myself." That sentence will be your anchor, a reminder that you're not here to chase love, but to reclaim your power. That you don't need to beg for attention, your presence already has value. This is your moment to prove to yourself that you can attract from calmness, not from need. That you deserve relationships where your peace isn't negotiable, where your worth doesn't depend on anyone's response. Without further ado, let's begin. First, Stoic advice. Don't seek, let yourself be found. There's a truth more painful than any rejection. No matter how hard you try, you can never force someone to see you. You can send messages, chase coincidences, offer your best version, even disguise your calmness behind strategies. But if the energy isn't mutual, nothing happens. The human soul recognizes when something comes from emptiness and when it comes from wholeness. The first exhausts, the second attracts. That's the root of this Stoic principle. Whoever seeks from need moves away from themselves, but whoever remains centered radiates a presence that inevitably attracts. Stoicism doesn't talk about seduction, but it teaches its highest art, inner mastery. True attraction isn't created through words or gestures, it's energy. And energy is shaped in silence when you learn to stop chasing anything. Epictetus said it plainly. Don't demand that things happen as you wish. Wish that they happen as they must. In other words, let life find its way to you. Excessive searching is a form of fear. Fear of not being chosen. Fear of not being enough. Fear of being alone. But the wise understand that solitude is not a threat, it's purification. There's no deeper clarity than the one that comes when you stop and listen to the sound of your own company. That's where you discover you don't need to run after anyone to feel alive. That the attention you crave from others is the same attention you must first learn to give yourself. Imagine standing before a lake. If the water is agitated, you can't see your reflection. But when it calms, the image becomes clear. The human mind works the same way. When you live in the rush to be accepted, everything distorts. Only in stillness can you see yourself clearly. Only from that serenity can you project something real. Not seeking doesn't mean being passive. It's conscious action without anxiety. It's moving with purpose, not desperation. The Stoic acts, but does not chase. He does what is within his control and releases what isn't. It's a balance as subtle as it is powerful. To flow without surrendering, to advance without forcing, to offer without begging. When you chase something or someone, you unconsciously declare that it has more value than you. That's where you start to lose power. Every time you prioritize someone else's attention over your own peace, you distance yourself from the composure you admire in others. Because what attracts most about a person isn't their perfection or beauty, it's their serenity. The sense that they could live without you, yet choose to share their time with you. That inner freedom is magnetic. Think of the people who've impacted your life the most. They probably weren't the ones who talked the most or texted you all day, but those who showed up effortlessly, who inspired without asking, who radiated quiet confidence. That can't be faked. It's learned through control. Marcus Aurelius put it simply: the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If your thoughts revolve around being accepted, your presence will feel anxious. If they revolve around living with virtue, your presence will glow. Love and respect, in all their forms, are natural consequences of inner balance. You don't have to chase them, they come to you. And when they do, the wise don't cling. They observe, give thanks, and let things be. Because even love needs air to breathe. To force it is to suffocate it. To chase it is to announce your lack. To wait for it calmly, instead, is to recognize that you already have it within. You're simply waiting to meet the one who reflects it back. The Stoic becomes a lighthouse, not a hunter. The lighthouse doesn't chase ships, it guides them with its light. Those who live with purpose don't beg for attention, they inspire it. And that doesn't mean they don't desire companionship. It means they don't need it to exist. Their worth doesn't depend on being chosen, but on staying true to themselves even when no one's watching. To stop seeking isn't to give up, it's to rise higher. It's to understand that nothing meant for you will ever ask you to betray your peace to obtain it. It's to realize that the most attractive force in the universe isn't insistence, it's calm. Because calmness doesn't beg, it simply waits with certainty. And that certainty isn't arrogance, it's wisdom. It's knowing that life rewards those who don't despair. That what's aligned with you will never demand you chase it. That what's real will find you when you're ready, not when you're anxious. So instead of asking, when will what I seek arrive? Ask yourself, am I ready to receive it without fear? Because many times, life doesn't give you what you want, not out of cruelty, but because you're not yet able to hold it. It's not about asking for more, it's about becoming more. Inner mastery is the soul's most powerful magnet. When you learn to enjoy your own silence, when you can be with yourself without escape, when your peace depends on no one, you start to emit a different frequency. That frequency doesn't say, look at me. It says, I know my worth. And the world inevitably responds to that energy. So stop, breathe, quit searching. Not because you don't deserve love, but because you already are love. Because as long as you chase what you think you lack, you'll keep running from what you truly have. And the day you can stay still without fear, without urgency, without need, that day, you'll discover something that changes everything. The purest love isn't found, it's reflected. And when that happens, you won't need to do anything more, because you'll have understood the true secret of Stoic attraction. Calmness is the new fire, and self-mastery, the most irresistible form of power. Second Stoic advice: calmness is more seductive than insistence. There's something the modern world has forgotten. Silence also communicates. In an era where everyone competes to be seen, heard, and approved of, the true power lies in the one who doesn't need to impose. That's where calmness becomes the highest form of attraction. Insistence might get attention, but only serenity keeps it. Because while anxiety talks too much, calmness says just enough. Epictetus said, "No one admires the one who grovels." He wasn't speaking only of physical humiliation, but of emotional submission, the human tendency to beg for what isn't given, to seek validation in eyes that no longer see us, to insist on places where we're no longer welcome. The Stoic understands that insistence is a form of weakness, not because feeling is wrong, but because feeling without control enslaves you. Calmness, on the other hand, makes you the master of yourself. When someone can maintain composure amid rejection or silence, it awakens deep curiosity. The other person's mind asks, why don't they react? Why aren't they desperate? That doubt is power. It's not manipulation, it's mastery. Serenity unsettles, because it's the opposite of what most people do when they feel ignored. Calmness says, I don't need to chase, because I know who I am. And that security, that emotional stability, is magnetic. Love, admiration, and respect are never born from urgency, they grow from balance. If you've ever felt the need to insist to be seen, stop. Ask yourself, am I seeking love or trying to soothe my fear of abandonment? They are very different things. Insistence seeks approval. Calmness seeks connection. One is born from emptiness, the other from inner mastery. In Stoic logic, insisting means trying to change what's not within your control, the other's response, their timing, their interest, their silence. None of that belongs to you. The only thing you can command is your reaction. And when your response is calm, when you don't let emotional urgency drag you, the power returns to you. In that moment, you regain what fear took away, your dignity. The problem with insistence is that it's rooted in the fear of loss. But what is obtained by force is easily lost, and what is earned with serenity endures. Because those who don't react to rejection show that their worth doesn't depend on someone else's desire. Within that self-control lies true attraction, the kind that doesn't seek to be loved, but to be understood. Calmness isn't the absence of emotion, it's emotion under command. It's contained power, like a river that doesn't overflow even when its current is strong. It's the art of waiting without anxiety, of leaving without resentment, of watching without demanding. Those who master that energy don't beg for attention, they radiate it. In practice, staying calm in the face of disinterest or provocation is one of the soul's hardest tests. The ego demands response, demands to be seen, but the strong soul refuses that urgency. The Stoic observes the situation as if from outside it. They ask, does this depend on me? If the answer is no, they stay silent. Because anything that asks more of you than it deserves is a trap of the ego disguised as love. Picture this. Someone ignores you, rejects you, or hurts you with indifference. The instinctive reaction would be to regain their attention, to prove your worth, to explain yourself. But the Stoic does the opposite. They breathe, gather themselves, and rise. Because there's no greater answer than peace. Calmness in those moments isn't just a gesture, it's a silent declaration of strength. It says without words, "My worth isn't negotiable." And when you do that, when you stand firm in silence without sinking into it, something curious happens. Those who underestimated you begin to see you differently. What they once ignored now intrigues them. Serenity creates mystery. Calmness evokes respect. What doesn't shout demands to be heard. That's the alchemy of inner mastery, turning reaction into presence. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations with disarming simplicity, "Be like the rock against which the waves crash." The rock doesn't argue, doesn't move, doesn't change its form to please the sea. It simply remains. That's the essence of Stoicism applied to relationships. Remain not closed, but unshaken. Be a rock, not a wall. Calmness doesn't just attract, it elevates the quality of what you attract. Because those who aren't afraid to lose choose better. Those who don't seek desperately discern. And those who discern surround themselves with people who don't need constant proof of their value. Serenity not only drives away the toxic, it filters out the mediocre. Remember this: the soul that doesn't waver becomes a mirror. And before such a clear mirror, others cannot lie. Your calmness reflects back their noise, their haste, their insecurity. Many, unable to face that truth, will walk away. But those who stay do so because they vibrate at the same frequency. So when you feel the impulse to insist, breathe. Not because you don't care, but because your energy is too precious to waste on the anxiety of being seen. Wait, stand firm. Make your calmness your sanctuary. And remember, serenity isn't coldness, it's the purest expression of confidence. When you can look at silence without fear and still keep your balance, then you'll have discovered the most powerful secret of Stoicism applied to love. Whoever masters their calm, masters desire. And whoever masters desire will never again be a slave to affection. Third Stoic advice: don't sell yourself, show yourself. We live in an age where most people don't reveal themselves, they sell themselves. Where people trade their essence for attention. Where authenticity is sacrificed in the name of acceptance. And the saddest part is that the sale isn't always for money. Often the price is the soul. They sell themselves for a like, for a message, for the illusion of not being alone. They sell themselves to avoid facing silence. But the Stoic doesn't enter that market. The Stoic doesn't offer edited versions of himself just to be chosen. The Stoic shows himself, and in doing so, he disarms the world. There is nothing more powerful than someone who doesn't need to convince. Because the one who doesn't need to convince has already won the hardest battle: self-respect. Selling yourself means trying to craft a reflection that pleases. Showing yourself means holding your truth even when it makes others uncomfortable, and that difference changes everything. Because while the one who sells seeks to fit in, the one who shows himself inspires. One acts out of need, the other out of freedom. Think about this. When you sell your essence, you become a hostage to whoever buys it. You enslave yourself to the judgment of others, to the gaze that validates or rejects you, to the opinion that dictates your worth. But when you show yourself without seeking approval, you break the invisible chains that tied you to applause. Calmness is born when you realize you don't have to prove anything. Those who see your worth will see it even when you're silent, and those who don't wouldn't, even if you shouted. Epictetus taught that the wise man doesn't fake virtue, he lives it. That lesson should be engraved in the heart of anyone seeking true respect. Don't try to seem desirable, be desirable. Not through pretense, but through coherence. The beauty of character isn't manufactured, it's cultivated. And when you cultivate virtue, when your way of being in the world is calm, steady, and authentic, attraction happens effortlessly, because the human soul recognizes authenticity like a lighthouse in the noise of darkness. The world rewards those who adapt, but it admires those who stand firm. Showing yourself is an act of courage. It's telling the world, "This is me without ornaments, without filters, without fear." And that unsettles people, because in a sea of masks, truth always looks like arrogance. But don't confuse your firmness with pride. It's simply your essence without apology. And that essence isn't for sale. It's shared only with those who deserve it. When you sell yourself, you shatter. You give away pieces of yourself to buy affection, but each piece leaves you emptier. Showing yourself, on the other hand, makes you whole. It makes you solid, consistent, impossible to manipulate. Because those who aren't afraid of rejection are already free. They have nothing to lose. And those who have nothing to lose cannot be controlled. That is the true strength of the Stoic soul, not living defensively, but living without need. Don't seek to seduce, seek to inspire. Don't seek to be desired. Be worthy of admiration. Desire fades when novelty ends, but admiration lasts when there's character behind the calm. And that only comes from authenticity, from not trying to please, but simply existing with purpose. True love doesn't grow from artifice, but from mutual recognition. And to be recognized, you must be visible, not decorative. Showing yourself means allowing others to see you as you are, even if that means losing some gazes. Because those who see your truth and still stay are the ones meant to walk beside you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be upright, not straightened." In other words, don't bend yourself to be understood. Be yourself, even if it leaves you alone. Because the price of authenticity may be solitude, but the price of pretending is self-abandonment. And there is no loss more devastating than losing yourself while trying to make others love you. Serenity isn't about hiding emotion, it's about not putting it up for sale. You don't have to prove your worth with exaggerated gestures or empty words. The Stoic proves it through presence. His mere way of being communicates more than any desperate attempt to be accepted. That stillness isn't arrogance, it's mastery. It's the confidence of someone who no longer chases being seen because he lives at peace with who he is. When you show yourself as you are, not everyone will know what to do with you. Some will admire you, others will avoid you, and that's fine. Authenticity always divides. Not everyone can handle the light of someone who has made peace with their shadow. Your calm will be mistaken for coldness, your silence for distance, your clarity for harshness. But those who truly see you will see the depth behind that calm, and that will be your circle. Small, but real. Modern society teaches you to sell yourself, your image, your story, your emotions, your pain. But the Stoic walks the other way. He doesn't need exposure, he needs meaning. He doesn't want an audience, he wants purpose. Because he understands that attention is fleeting, but respect is eternal. He doesn't seek applause, he seeks coherence. And that coherence, when sustained over time, becomes magnetism. Showing yourself also means embracing imperfection. It's not pretending to be wise, it's acknowledging what you're still learning. It's not hiding the wound, it's showing the scar as proof you've healed. That controlled vulnerability without drama, without victimhood, is one of the most irresistible forces there is. Because those who can show themselves without fear prove they no longer depend on the judgment of others. If you ever feel like you're not enough, like you need to exaggerate your worth to be noticed, remember this. The sun doesn't shout to shine, it simply rises, and that's enough. The Stoic lives like that, without proving, without selling, without begging. He shows himself and lets his coherence speak for him. So stop selling your peace for company. Stop putting a price on your time out of fear of solitude. Stop disguising yourself as what you're not, to be loved by those who don't see you. Show yourself. Not because you trust they'll understand, but because you refuse to keep living hidden behind fear. Because when you show yourself without fear, without masks, without need, the universe stops sending you tests and starts sending you mirrors, people, situations, and paths that reflect your true frequency. And then, without seeking, without selling, without effort, you attract what was always meant to find you. That's the power of authenticity. It doesn't chase, it attracts. It doesn't persuade, it inspires. It doesn't sell, it shows. And when you reach that point where your calm no longer needs witnesses, you'll understand that there is no strategy more seductive than the serenity of someone who is whole within themselves. Fourth, Stoic advice. Don't react to silence, master it. People expect noise. When you fall silent, many interpret it as emptiness, others as provocation. But here's a truth few will admit. Reacting to silence is giving away your peace to those testing you. Mastery isn't the absence of feeling, it's the ability to choose the time and shape of your words. Learn to turn that mute space into your advantage. Picture this. You're in front of someone who responds with silence after an accusation, an omission, or a cold indifference. Your first instinct will be to fill the gap, to explain, to justify, to beg for attention. That impulse doesn't come from reason. It comes from fear, fear of loss, fear of appearing weak, fear of being misunderstood. The Stoic doesn't deny fear. He acknowledges it, observes it, and lets it pass without obeying it. Before you speak, ask yourself, does this word build me up or diminish me? Does it give me mastery or hand me over to impulse? Mastering silence begins with internalizing a simple principle. Pause is an instrument. It's not neutral. A well-placed pause can display strength, cool down provocation, and expose the other's expectations. When someone watches you in tension and you remain calm, the power in the situation shifts. It's not about being distant, it's about being firm in your composure. Your silence must be a choice, not a failure. Make silence your tool to listen more deeply, to evaluate more clearly, and to respond from reason instead of fire. Practice this. The next time you feel the urge to speak after being wronged, take 3 breaths. 3 breaths aren't a prayer. They're a tactic. Each breath pulls back the muscle of impulse, giving your mind time to craft a response worthy of you, instead of reacting with anger or humiliation. In that brief interval, listen to your body where it tightens, what images appear, what automatic stories push you to defend yourself. Observe without labeling, just observe. From there, the words that arise will have form and weight. They won't be an outburst, but an action. Another way to master silence is to turn the other's expectations into information. Why are they silent? Are they trying to bait you into explaining yourself? Are they measuring your reaction? Or do they simply have nothing to say but hope their silence makes you confess guilt? Reading intent without judgment lets you choose your strategy. Say nothing, respond with a brief, composed sentence, or refocus the conversation on what matters. The wise don't let someone else's theater dictate their dialogue. They decide the scene and measure the ending. Learn phrases that protect your limits without aggression. I'm not going to enter an unproductive dynamic. I prefer to talk calmly when we're both ready. That accusation doesn't require me to justify myself right now. Sentences like these shut the door on manipulation without inflaming the situation. They're locks that say, "This is my garden. I don't allow theatrical invasions." And most importantly, they're spoken in the first person. Don't attack, assert your stance. Speaking in the first person expresses inner mastery. Speaking in the second often fuels conflict. Don't confuse silence with cold indifference. There are complicit silences, mourning silences, and strategic silences. Stoic mastery is knowing which one to use in each moment. Sometimes silence is companionship when someone suffers. Don't fill the space with hollow advice. Just stay. Sometimes it's a weapon in negotiations. Don't show urgency. Well-timed waiting forces others to move. Sometimes it's closure when a conversation has no use left. Silence cuts the rope and protects your peace. Knowing when to use each type is wisdom in action. But beware of one inner danger, the silence that turns into rumination. Staying quiet to master yourself isn't staying quiet to drown in thought. The Stoic transforms that energy into horizontal action. Write, walk, meditate, plan. Productive silence ends in movement, decision, action. Passive silence rots into resentment. So, when you decide to hold your tongue, pair that pause with something constructive. Organize your agenda, prepare concise responses, or simply keep doing what's within your control while the noise of others fades away. Here's a practical exercise that works. After any tense interaction, return to a short ritual, 5 minutes of free writing. Pour out your emotions without editing. Then highlight only what gives you clarity, what's true, what depends on you, what belongs to the other. That notebook becomes your barometer. Over time, you'll notice the urge to defend yourself on impulse fading because you know you have a space to put things in order. Words lose the urgency of reaction and gain the maturity of judgment. Remember, mastering silence is also an act of dignity toward others. Constant noise exhausts and turns relationships into emotional consumption arenas. When you withhold your words, you restore a human rhythm to conversation. Listening, pause, response. You teach others to communicate with less drama and more truth. Owning your silence is how you build a social fabric where calm prevails over chaos. And accept this, some won't understand. Some will mistake your composure for arrogance. Others will see it as disdain. That's not yours to fix. Your responsibility is to your own composure. Each time you choose a conscious pause, you practice a freer version of yourself, someone defined not by others' reactions, but by their own serene choices. That coherence is magnetic and, over time, contagious. So the next time silence provokes you, don't let it pull you in. Breathe, listen, decide. Let silence work for you. Master it with the clarity of someone who knows true strength. Doesn't shout it, waits, it holds, it answers with reason. That is the art of turning a useless reaction into a quiet, decisive victory. Fifth Stoic advice. Emotional scarcity is your ally. In a world that confuses intensity with love, learning to measure your giving is an act of power. Not because the heart must close, but because any abundance without direction becomes noise. Emotional scarcity doesn't mean coldness, it means choice. It's knowing that not everyone deserves your depth, that your energy is sacred, and that scattering it carelessly only dilutes you. The Stoic understands that every emotion shared is an investment, and only those who demonstrate virtue deserve access to that inner wealth. Most people love out of urgency. They want to talk about everything, fix everything, feel everything right now. But that rush reveals fear, not love. Fear of losing, fear of not being enough, fear of being left out of someone else's story. Yet what truly frightens us isn't losing someone, it's realizing that, without them, we don't know who we are. That's why emotional scarcity isn't manipulation, it's a way to remember that before you give, you must preserve yourself. That the most balanced love grows from respecting your own limits. Seneca wrote it clearly, "Nothing is lost through moderation, everything is destroyed through excess." Loving without measure isn't virtue, it's disorder. Giving everything without discernment doesn't make you noble, it makes you vulnerable to those who haven't yet learned how to care. The wise person isn't afraid to love, but chooses. Chooses when to open up, whom to trust, how far to allow. Not out of calculation, but out of dignity. Because giving only has value when it comes from fullness, not emptiness. Being emotionally selective is practicing the purest form of detachment, the kind that doesn't flee, but also doesn't spill over. The balanced soul doesn't harden, it refines itself. It learns to tell the difference between those who listen to understand and those who only wait for their turn to speak, between those who accompany and those who consume. That distinction is the line between peace and exhaustion. Those who don't draw it end up drained, resentful, and confused, believing that loving too much is a virtue, when in truth it's self-abandonment. Emotional scarcity isn't about punishing others, it's about honoring your energy. It's not about giving less, but giving better, offering your presence when it's meaningful, not when fear pushes you to. It's the difference between giving your time out of anxiety or sharing it out of choice. When you learn to do that, your life changes. Relationships become cleaner, words more sincere, gestures more valuable. Because you no longer give to be seen, you give because you know who you are, even when no one's watching. Stoic love isn't lack, it's measure. It's understanding that the fire that illuminates can also burn. That's why the wise feed their flame with prudence, keeping the warmth without letting it consume itself. In that moderation lies the beauty. To love without losing balance, to give without losing control, to feel without becoming a slave to feeling. That kind of love isn't taught in songs or movies, it's learned in the silence of chosen solitude, when you realize that not everyone who arrives is meant to stay. Marcus Aurelius warned, "The mind that scatters loses itself." The same is true of the boat, heart. If every stimulus disturbs you, if every message dictates your mood, you've surrendered control of your serenity. Practicing emotional scarcity is returning home. It's remembering that your calm is worth more than any fleeting interaction. You don't need to reply instantly, to explain yourself endlessly, or to offer presence where there's no reciprocity. Those who value your energy don't demand it, they respect it. Moderation doesn't cool connection, it strengthens it. It allows desire to breathe, silence to speak, and absence to matter. In a time ruled by immediacy, those who can wait become irresistible, because they display a confidence that doesn't depend on outcomes. The Stoic doesn't chase, he observes, chooses, and acts only when his action is necessary. Emotional scarcity is a way of saying to the world, my time isn't infinite, and neither is my attention. If I offer it, it's because I consider it sacred. Don't mistake scarcity for disinterest. Disinterest extinguishes. Scarcity illuminates with direction. It's the art of making every gesture mean something, every word carry weight, every look become a bridge instead of a waste. It's the balance between giving and keeping, between sharing and protecting. When you give less but with intention, your presence leaves a mark, because you're no longer available out of fear, but by choice. And at that point, attraction becomes inevitable. Think about the difference between water that flows without control and water that's guided with precision. The first floods, the second gives life. Your emotional energy works the same way. When it overflows, it confuses. When it's channeled, it nourishes. Scarcity isn't drought, it's direction. It allows emotion to flow within limits that strengthen it. Those limits aren't walls, they're forms of respect. Those who give without measure end up empty. Those who contain themselves with wisdom remain whole. There's something deeply magnetic about someone who doesn't give themselves away completely, not out of calculation but integrity. Someone who leaves space for mystery, for gradual discovery, for depth revealed over time. Emotional scarcity creates pauses, and within those pauses, desire is born. It's not about pretending distance, it's about living in balance. Understanding that genuine connection cannot be rushed, it's built slowly, with rhythm, with mutual respect. Seneca also warned, those who divide themselves among many belong to none. It applies to love, friendship, even purpose. Emotional scarcity isn't selfishness, it's concentration. It's guarding your energy from being wasted on bonds that don't honor it. It's reserving your presence for moments and people who truly deserve it. Because your time is the most finite resource and your attention the most coveted, when you learn to manage them wisely, you stop attracting chaos and begin attracting harmony. The soul that preserves itself isn't less loving, it's more lucid. It loves without dissolving, gives without losing itself, listens without absorbing. And when life asks for distance, it doesn't resist because it knows every absence also purifies. Emotional scarcity teaches you to value the simple things, an honest conversation, a gesture without noise, a gaze that doesn't seek to possess. It teaches you to enjoy without dependence, to accompany without absorbing, to love without fearing solitude. Because the wise person's solitude isn't emptiness, it's a garden. Those who master their emotional energy don't fear running out of love because they already carry it within. They know that what's given in balance returns multiplied, and what's given in desperation dissolves. So before you give, measure not out of coldness, but out of respect. Not for others, but for yourself. Because no one will protect what you don't protect first. Emotional scarcity isn't withdrawing from the world. It's learning to participate without losing your center. It's the antidote to dependency and excess. It's the constant reminder that you don't need to give everything to be worthy of love. Sometimes loving better means giving less, because what's measured is savored, what's wasted is lost. And those who understand this conquer without chasing, attract without striving, and love without exhaustion. So guard your energy as you would a flame in the wind. Don't hide it, but don't leave it at the mercy of every breeze. Emotional scarcity doesn't distance you from love, it leads you to its purest form. Because only when you know when to stop, do you discover the power of being the one who decides how much to give. And in that moment, love ceases to be a risk and becomes freedom. If something inside you felt calm while hearing these words, don't ignore it. That brief serenity you felt isn't weakness, it's your true power emerging. Following us isn't a favor to this podcast, it's an act of respect for yourself. It means you're ready to stop chasing approval and start embodying presence. That you no longer need to run after anyone because you're learning to attract from your center. Do it now. Subscribe and share this message with anyone who still confuses love with need. Because when one mind learns to love without depending, it inevitably teaches another to do the same. Sixth, Stoic advice. Mystery is born from self-control. There is something in the human soul that is irresistibly drawn to what is not given away too quickly, not to what is unreachable, but to what is contained. Mystery is not a game of manipulation, it's the natural consequence of temperance. We live in an age where everything is revealed, where every thought is published, and every emotion displayed without restraint. In that flood of exposure, calm becomes a different language, almost subversive. Those who master their impulses and decide when, how, and how much to reveal project a silent power that the world reads as magnetism. Self-control doesn't extinguish desire, it refines it. And in that refinement, mystery is born. Mystery isn't about hiding who you are, it's about not offering it all at once. It's about leaving space for curiosity to grow, for connection to have rhythm, for another person to discover your depth over time. When you give everything too soon, your story, your emotions, your attention, you cancel out the most human process of all, contemplation. The soul doesn't fall in love with what it understands instantly, but with what invites it to stay. And that only happens when there is restraint. It's not about keeping secrets, it's about preserving the worth of your inner world. Constant exposure cheapens, moderation ennobles. Marcus Aurelius taught, "Not everything you think should be spoken, nor everything spoken should be said aloud." Within that line lies the art of mystery, not pretending, not manipulating, but discerning. Temperance isn't forced silence, it's expressive balance. Every word, every gesture, every look is an opportunity to display mastery. Those who can't control their need to speak or to explain themselves lose the power their presence could carry. Those who know when to be silent, when to hold back, when to let time reveal what impulse wanted to shout, become unfathomable. And the unfathomable fascinates because it conveys depth. Self-control is a form of invisible beauty. In a world where immediacy has replaced mystery, self-mastery feels rare, and rarity always attracts. There's magnetism in the person who doesn't react instantly, who listens more than they speak, who can hold a gaze without rushing to fill it with words. That calm unsettles other people's egos, because the ego craves quick responses to feel in control. But the strong soul doesn't hurry, it enjoys the wait. Mystery, then, isn't a veil, it's a tempo, a rhythm that only those ungoverned by urgency can sustain. Self-control is also a declaration of emotional independence. It shows that you don't need to share everything to feel validated, that you can stand in silence without fearing it. That ability to contain comes from deep inner work. It isn't achieved through repression, but through understanding. Understanding yourself gives you freedom. Repressing yourself imprisons you. True mystery comes from understanding, not from strategy. It's the serenity of someone who knows themselves well enough not to need justification, and that self-knowledge makes others want to know more. Epictetus warned that the wise do not reveal their thoughts to the first curious listener, not out of disdain, but out of self-respect. Every word costs energy. Every confession opens a door. Not every door deserves to be opened for everyone. Mystery arises from discernment, knowing what to show, what to keep, and what to leave to silence. When that balance is cultivated, the soul gains a unique texture, as if within it lay a reservoir of calm, untouched by the world's haste. That reserve can be felt, even without words. Being mysterious isn't about being inaccessible, it's about being selective. It's allowing others to discover you at their own pace without handing them the entire map. It's keeping a flame that lights without blinding. When you speak less, your words carry more weight. When you share only what's necessary, your presence gains a value that excess destroys. When you act with moderation, you project a security no speech can match. Mystery cannot be forced, it radiates naturally. Self-control doesn't just preserve mystery, it protects your energy. Every unnecessary reaction, every impulsive outburst, every explanation no one asked for is a leak. The Stoic wastes no energy defending the obvious or convincing the unmovable. He knows true power lies in choice, in deciding when to act and when to observe. Within that pause lives mystery. Because well-administered silence isn't emptiness, it's concentrated presence. And concentrated presence transforms the environment without a single word. There is something profoundly erotic about emotional restraint, not because it's a game, but because it communicates strength. Human desire isn't ignited by overexposure, but by suggestion. Showing everything extinguishes the fire. Hinting at it keeps it alive. The Stoic doesn't repress desire, he governs it. And through that control, his gaze grows more intense, his words more precise, his gestures more deliberate. Moderation amplifies effect because it forces others to imagine what isn't shown. And what's imagined is always more powerful than what's explicit. In an era where everyone shares every thought online and every emotion in public, self-control is rebellion. It's saying to the world, I don't need to expose myself to exist. It's reclaiming the dignity of intimacy, the elegance of silence, the strength of discretion. What is guarded with intention gains weight. What is constantly displayed wears out. Just as gold shines brighter surrounded by shadow, inner truth gleams when presented with restraint. Mystery, then, isn't darkness, it's the frame that highlights the masterpiece. Owning your rhythm is also a way to master time. Those who don't rush force the world to move at their pace. Those who don't respond instantly teach that their attention has value. Those who don't tell their entire story in one conversation create continuity. Mystery is the art of leaving space for the future, of allowing bonds to form, with pauses, with discoveries, with air. Immediacy is hunger. Mystery is a feast. Only those who master their appetite can savor without devouring. Self-control doesn't just create mystery outwardly, it creates clarity within. When you don't rush, you observe. When you don't react, you understand. When you don't overtalk, you hear what's truly happening inside you. Temperance allows you to see with distance, free from impulse distortion. And in that distance arises the purest power, not needing to be understood to remain at peace. That serenity confuses people because it doesn't seek validation. It simply exists solid, unshakable. And in a world addicted to approval, that is almost supernatural. Marcus Aurelius also reminded us, "The greatness of the soul is measured by what it can overlook." Mystery thrives in that greatness, the ability not to explain everything, not to justify yourself, to let time reveal what urgency distorts. Each time you choose silence over reaction, you create space for curiosity and respect. Each time you choose to wait before speaking, you demonstrate mastery over yourself. And that mastery is felt even before it's understood. So don't mistake it. Mystery isn't manufactured, it's cultivated. It isn't strategy, it's consequence. It's born from the mastery you have over your emotions, from the confidence that comes with not needing to prove anything. It's the elegant shadow of authenticity. Those who control themselves not out of fear, but by choice, become fascinating, because within their restraint lies strength, and within their silence, promise. Self-control is the invisible foundation of all magnetic presence. It's the difference between those who act and those who react, between those who attract and those who beg. There is no charm more enduring than that of a mind ruled by itself. Because those who master their impulse never burn out, never overflow, never betray themselves. They remain whole, and in that wholeness, mystery blooms. Mystery isn't absence, it's measured fullness. And when you reach that balance, you become something the world no longer knows how to find. Someone who doesn't need to display themselves to be unforgettable. Seventh Stoic advice: don't seek to be needed, be admired. Love isn't measured by how much someone needs you, but by how much they respect you. Yet most people confuse dependence with connection, attachment with affection, need with love. From childhood, we're taught to seek approval, to feel worthy only when chosen by someone else. But the pursuit of being needed eventually empties us, because the one who needs doesn't choose, they depend, and the one who depends doesn't love, they fear. The Stoic sees this clearly. He'd rather be admired for his strength than pitied for his lack of control. He doesn't seek to be someone's oxygen, but their example. Not a crutch, but a mirror. Need creates the illusion of connection, but, in truth, it binds. "I need you" sounds romantic, but it hides a silent poison. Possession. When someone needs you to feel whole, they make you their source of stability. And sooner or later, they'll blame you for every void they can't fill. Seneca warned, "He who depends on another for happiness has made himself a slave." Admiration, on the other hand, is born from freedom. It doesn't demand, it inspires. It doesn't suffocate, it uplifts. It's the kind of bond that doesn't ask you to save someone, but invites you to walk beside them with dignity. To be admired is not to seek applause, it's to embody virtue. To live in such a way that your very presence reminds others they can be stronger too. The Stoic doesn't seek adoration or dependency, because both distort relationships. He seeks mutual respect, and respect can only exist when both stand tall. If they love you because they need you, that love will die once they no longer depend. But if they love you because they admire you, they'll carry you within even after they part. Admiration transcends closeness, need destroys it. Many believe loving means being indispensable, that if the other can live without you, they didn't love enough. But that's ego, not love. Mature love is measured by freedom, not dependence, by how much peace you bring, not how much control you have. Marcus Aurelius said, "Love without losing yourself." That phrase captures emotional respect. not erasing yourself to hold someone else up. If someone loves you only because you keep them standing, what binds you isn't love, it's fear. Fear of the void, fear of solitude, fear of facing what each must heal alone. The Stoic doesn't seek to fill another's emptiness, he maintains his own center. He knows true help isn't rescuing, but teaching how to stand. That's why his presence doesn't create dependence, it sparks inspiration. To be admired isn't about impressing, it's about being consistent. Consistency builds trust, and trust builds respect. Those who live by principle, without duplicity or the need for validation, become solid figures in a world of masks. And that solidity, that silent composure is far more attractive than any display of sacrifice. Need dramatizes everything. It turns every silence into a threat, every distance into an offense, every disagreement into abandonment. But those who seek admiration don't fear space, they honor it. They understand that distance also nourishes, that time apart allows clarity. They don't demand constant attention because their worth doesn't depend on being remembered. The Stoic doesn't ask, "Do you miss me?" because he knows his presence left an imprint that absence can't erase. He doesn't need proof of love, his integrity is proof enough. There's a kind of calm only possessed by those who don't seek to be needed. It's the calm of knowing that if the other leaves, you don't collapse. That your inner world doesn't depend on a message, a gesture, or a promise. That independence doesn't make you cold, it makes you reliable. Because those who can stand alone don't demand, they offer. They don't manipulate, they propose. They don't beg, they inspire. Those who love themselves don't need possession to feel whole. And that self-sufficiency is deeply magnetic. It reveals a strength rare in an age of emotional dependency disguised as romance. Epictetus taught that true mastery lies not in having, but in losing without breaking. To be admired means precisely that, to love without fear of loss. Not because you don't care, but because your love isn't chained to permanence. It's free, and what's free is always beautiful. When you stop seeking to be needed, you give space for others to admire you. And admiration, unlike need, doesn't fade with time, it deepens. Because the freer you are, the more authentic you become. And authenticity, like fire, draws others in without promising anything. Every healthy relationship holds an invisible exchange. One offers inspiration, the other offers admiration. It's not hierarchy, it's balance. But when that balance breaks, and one begins to depend on the other, love turns into a burden. To be admired is to be light, to be a source of energy, not weight. To be present without invading, to give without demanding, to accompany without controlling. Need demands proof, admiration trusts. Need fears silence, admiration respects it. And when both understand this, love stops being a battlefield and becomes a space of expansion. Modern society feeds the illusion that being needed gives you worth, that you must always be available, reply fast, constantly prove your interest. But that total availability drains your magnetism. Measured absence, emotional independence, and clear boundaries are what keep respect alive. If you're always there, you become background. If you know how to step back with elegance, you become a memory. Admiration can't be forced, it's earned through serene presence. And serenity is born only from temperance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul is ennobled when it acts according to its nature." The nature of the free soul is not to depend, but to share. Those who act from that freedom don't beg for affection, they inspire it. And when others sense that you don't need them, but choose them, their perception shifts, they respect you more. listen more, value you more. Because nothing is more captivating than someone who could leave but decides to stay. That voluntary choice has more power than 1,000 promises. To be admired doesn't require outward grandeur but inner coherence. It's being true to your principles even when no one watches. It's staying calm when everything pushes you to react. It's holding your center while the world shouts. That serenity is what awakens genuine admiration. People may forget your words, but never the peace they felt in your presence. Admiration doesn't come from noise, but from example, from silence that teaches more than speeches, from self-control that shows more than explanations. The cast is, deepest love isn't the one that makes you feel needed, but the one that makes you feel free. Because those who love from admiration don't want to possess you, they want to see you grow. They don't ask you to be their refuge, they want to walk beside you under the same sky. In that kind of love, no one saves anyone, both rise together. That's the purest form of connection, where respect replaces fear and freedom replaces dependence. That's where the Stoic bond is born, a love that doesn't confine but expands. To be admired is to accept that not everyone will understand you. Some will mistake your independence for indifference, your calm for distance, your strength for pride. But the wise don't seek to be understood by all, they seek to remain consistent with themselves. True admiration comes from the few, but it's worth more than the attention of the many. Don't fear losing those who only loved you out of need. Their departure makes room for more genuine bonds. Don't seek to be needed. Be remembered for the peace you bring, for the clarity with which you live, for the integrity you uphold. Let your presence leave inspiration, not dependency. Let it awaken respect, not lack. And when someone thinks of you, may they not say, "I needed them," but "they made me better." That's the legacy of the free soul, not to fill emptiness, but to ignite paths. And when you live that way, you'll understand there is no attraction more enduring than that which grows from silent respect. Because love may fade, but admiration, when true, becomes eternity. 8th Stoic advice. Selective indifference is power. Not everything deserves your energy. Not everything that hurts you deserves a response. Not every provocation deserves a defense. Selective indifference is not coldness, it's applied wisdom. It's the understanding that your attention is the most valuable resource you possess, and every time you give it away without discernment, you impoverish your soul. The Stoic doesn't react to everything, he chooses his battles. Not because he doesn't feel, but because he has learned that not every emotion deserves the privilege of becoming action. Selective indifference is a form of inner mastery, the art of deciding what is worthy of disturbing your peace. Modern life has conditioned us to overstimulation. News, opinions, other people's conflicts, social networks filled with noise. Amid that chaos, many confuse participation with presence. They believe being involved in everything means being someone, that having an opinion on everything means being wise, that reacting to everything means having strength. But the truth is this: those who don't choose, scatter. Those who scatter, weaken. Marcus Aurelius wrote with unflinching clarity, "Do not waste your time on what does not depend on you." That phrase should be the motto of the serene mind, for it captures the essence of all emotional strength. Selective indifference is not disconnection from the world, it's connection with yourself. It's realizing that you can observe without absorbing, listen without reacting, coexist without being contaminated. You don't need an opinion on every matter or involvement in every drama to be conscious or compassionate. Epictetus taught that freedom begins when you stop worrying about what you cannot control. And control, in its deepest sense, means not allowing anything external to dictate your internal state. That is the essence of the wise person's silent power, the ability to stay calm even when the world burns around him. Practicing selective indifference is a daily exercise. It begins with the small things. A malicious comment, a hostile gesture, a subtle provocation. The natural impulse is to reply, to defend yourself, to prove you're unaffected. But true strength doesn't lie in proving resilience, it lies in not needing to prove it. When someone seeks your reaction, they're seeking control of your energy. If you react, you surrender your power. If you stay silent, you keep it. The silence of the one who chooses not to respond isn't weakness, it's strategy. It's the invisible wall that shields your mind from emotional invasion. To be selectively indifferent is not to be apathetic, it's to be conscious. It's knowing that every reaction has a cost and that your serenity is worth more than any argument. Seneca warned that the greatest revenge is contempt for the offender, not because you should despise people, but because ignoring what doesn't deserve your time is an act of self-respect. The wise don't stoop to prove superiority, their calm proves it for them. In a world where everyone fights for the last word, silence becomes a revolutionary act. Think of how many times you've lost your peace over things that didn't matter a day later. Arguments that changed nothing, messages that didn't deserve a reply, gestures meant only to provoke. Each of those moments was an unconscious surrender of power. Selective indifference returns that power to you. It reminds you that you can observe without engaging, that you can choose not to waste your energy proving you're right. Because sometimes silence isn't cowardice, it's elegance. And spiritual elegance is the refusal to let the external rule the internal. Selective indifference also applies to love. Not every emotional connection deserves your full devotion. Not every absence should be chaste. Not every silence needs interpretation. The Stoic understands that insisting on being understood by someone who refuses to listen is a form of slavery. Loving doesn't mean accepting every treatment or reacting to every signal. There is dignity in not pleading. There is power in not insisting. There is beauty in walking away calmly. Indifference, when selective, is self-love in motion, not toward others, but toward your own peace. The mature soul knows how to distinguish between what expands it and what chains it. It doesn't get tangled in useless debates. It doesn't chase approval. It doesn't try to fix every minor injustice. The Stoic isn't indifferent to the suffering of the world, but he knows he can't save it all. His power lies in focusing his energy on what he can transform: his character, his example, his conduct. That emotional discipline allows him to be useful without exhaustion, firm without cruelty, present without losing himself. Selective indifference isn't selfishness, it's spiritual management. It's guarding your energy like a monk guards the flame of his temple, never letting the wind blow it out, nor the fire consume it. In practice, applying this principle means observing your reactions. Every time something irritates you, pause. Ask yourself, does this depend on me? If the answer is no, breathe and let it go. Not because you don't care, but because you understand that worry doesn't change facts. The trained mind chooses its battlefield, it doesn't scatter. And in that restraint, true freedom blooms. Indifference isn't distance, it's clarity. It's the ability to choose where to place your attention, and therefore where to place your life. Marcus Aurelius also said, "If it hurts you, it's because you've judged it as hurtful. That phrase carries immense wisdom. It's not events that disturb us, but the interpretations we give them. Selective indifference is precisely that, the art of mature interpretation. To see an offense and decide it doesn't deserve to wound you. To see a minor injustice and decide it's not worth your equilibrium. To see a cold gesture and refuse to let it freeze your heart. It's choosing your center again and again, no matter the noise around you. When you practice it, you'll notice something powerful. Your environment changes. The people who used to manipulate you lose their grip. The conflicts that drained you dissolve. Those who live off drama will seek other ears, because your calm doesn't feed them. And those who truly value your energy will approach with respect. Your serenity becomes a natural filter. Selective indifference doesn't just protect, it purifies your circle. You stop attracting chaos and start attracting stability. Because the tranquil soul only resonates with other tranquil souls. Epictetus said that the wise are never dragged by what's beyond their control, because they know every unnecessary reaction is a form of slavery. Every time you respond impulsively, you step away from freedom. Every time you choose to observe instead, you reclaim it. That's why selective indifference isn't a wall, it's a door. The door that leads you out of other people's noise and back into inner clarity. Once you learn to walk through it, you discover something transformative. Most conflicts exist only because you feed them with your attention. To be selectively indifferent is to master the art of balance, to feel without being dragged, to listen without absorbing, to see without judging. It's the highest expression of emotional control. And in that mastery lies a kind of elegance few understand. Because the world mistakes reaction for strength, when true strength lies in not reacting, in keeping composure when everyone else loses theirs, in facing what others fear with serenity. So next time something provokes you, someone tests your weakness, or a situation threatens your calm, remember this: not everything deserves your response. Your energy wasn't made to feed the trivial. Save your words for what's essential, your gestures for what's noble, your fire for what truly illuminates. Selective indifference isn't coldness, it's wisdom in motion. It's the art of loving your peace more than your ego. And those who love their peace never lose it again. 9th Stoic advice. You attract what you reflect. The universe responds to your inner state with a precision that can be unsettling. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. Your thoughts, your emotions, your invisible habits become a silent magnet that determines the kind of people, situations, and energies that enter your life. It's a law that needs no mysticism to be understood. Like attracts like. If you vibrate in scarcity, you'll attract relationships that confirm your lack. If you vibrate in serenity, you'll attract connections that mirror that peace. What you carry within projects outward, and that projection builds the world you live in. The Stoic knows this. Before trying to change others, change your reflection. Marcus Aurelius wrote it simply: a man's life is what his thoughts make of it. That phrase contains an entire philosophy. Your thoughts don't just shape your perception, they shape your reality. Every judgment, every emotion, every interpretation becomes the lens that defines what you see. If you believe the world is hostile, your mind will search for threats. If you believe life is a field of learning, your mind will find lessons. This isn't naive optimism, it's radical responsibility. You are the source of your experience. You attract what you project because the world cannot give you a frequency different from the one you emit. The most common mistake is expecting love without practicing it, respect without embodying it, calm without cultivating it. Many seek balanced relationships while living in chaos. They ask for understanding while they judge, for loyalty while they betray their own word. The Stoic avoids that incoherence. He understands that the world is a mirror, not a screen. You can't manipulate the reflection without transforming the face. You attract what you reflect because energy cannot be faked, it radiates. You can try to appear serene, but if there's anxiety inside, it will show. You can pretend to be confident, but if fear governs you, others will sense it. The human soul has an unfailing radar for emotional truth. Attracting from calm requires mastering your own noise. It doesn't come from reading motivational quotes or posing as spiritual. It comes from facing who you are when no one is watching, from taming your thoughts before they tame you. Epictetus said it sharply, "It's not what happens to you that harms you, but what you think about it." That isn't just comfort, it's power. It means every emotion is a choice, and every choice shapes your frequency. Choose noble thoughts, and you'll attract noble circumstances. Choose victimhood, and you'll attract more reasons to complain. Life is a dialogue between what you give and what you emit. Imagine that every person who appears in your life is a mirror reflecting a part of you. The kind ones reflect your ability to give. The cruel ones reflect your need for boundaries. The indifferent ones mirror your lack of attention to yourself. Nothing arrives by chance. Everything has a teaching purpose. When the Stoic grasps this, he stops blaming and starts observing. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" he asks, "Which version of me is attracting this?" That question elevates him, because it gives him back control. Life stops being punishment and becomes soul training. You attract what you reflect in love as well. If you relate from need, you'll attract those who confirm your dependence. If you relate from fullness, you'll attract those who celebrate your freedom. The Stoic doesn't seek relationships that fill emptiness, but ones that share abundance. He knows emotional dependence distorts the mirror, creating images of love that are really echoes of fear. That's why he cultivates calm before giving himself. He knows you can't love well from disorder. Inner peace is the perfume of a mature soul, and those who live in calm attract those who appreciate silence. The reflection also works through rejection. The people who irritate, hurt, or provoke. You aren't coincidences, they're teachers. They reflect the aspects you haven't mastered, the wounds you haven't closed, the emotions that still rule your mood. The wise don't respond with hate, they observe. They understand that what disturbs them in others points to something they must work on within. Every criticism that stings, every slight that unsettles, every indifference that hurts, reveals a hidden dependency. Life uses reflection to expose your blind spots, and only when you acknowledge them can you free yourself. Coherence is the core of this law. You can't emit serenity if you live in contradiction. You can't speak of balance while acting from chaos. The Stoic works on his interior first. He observes his thoughts, guards his language, disciplines his routines, moderates his desires. Because he knows every small action either strengthens or weakens his energy. Discipline isn't external control, it's internal hygiene. That hygiene becomes clarity, and clarity becomes magnetism. People often confuse magnetism with charisma, but they're not the same. Charisma seduces, magnetism attracts effortlessly, and magnetism is born from the alignment between thought, feeling, and action. Marcus Aurelius said, "The harmony of the soul is man's greatest beauty." That harmony is what radiates from those who live without duplicity. Their energy isn't divided between appearance and truth. That congruence builds trust, and trust is the strongest reflection. We all gravitate toward those who make us feel peaceful, not because they say anything special, but because they vibrate on a different frequency. You attract what you reflect because your energy always seeks balance. If you carry storms inside, you'll find storms outside. If you carry peace, you'll recognize peace in others. The outer world is merely the echo of your inner world. Life, then, isn't about attracting what you want. It's about becoming who can sustain what you seek. Many want love, but haven't learned to love without fear. They want abundance, but still live in scarcity. They want respect, but don't respect themselves. They want peace, but feed conflict with their thoughts. The Stoic doesn't ask the universe, he prepares. He doesn't demand results, he cultivates causes. His focus isn't on attracting, but on being. Because he knows what's full within, doesn't need to search outside. Attraction is a consequence, not a goal. Once you understand this, you stop obsessing over the external. You stop asking when the right person, job, or opportunity will come. You start asking whether you are the right person to receive it, whether your character, habits, and thoughts align with what you claim to desire. The answer to that question is the key. Because life doesn't give you what you dream, it gives you what you're ready to hold. And preparation begins in silence, in daily practice, in self-mastery. Epictetus reminded us that you can't escape yourself, not even by traveling the world. Wherever you go, you'll take yourself with you. If your mind is at war, your environment will reflect that war. If it's at peace, it will reflect that peace. That's why the wise don't run, they transform. They don't seek better circumstances, they become better witnesses. And when they do, reality changes its tone, as if everything rearranged around them. It's not magic, it's coherence. The power of vibrating from clarity, of living with purpose, of emitting energy that doesn't contradict your word. You attract what you reflect, even in the smallest gestures, in how you speak to yourself, how you treat others, how you respond to mistakes. Every act sends a message to the universe about who you are. If you sow respect, you'll harvest respect. If you sow chaos, you'll harvest chaos. The Stoic guards his thoughts because he knows they are seeds. He doesn't let anger or self-pity cloud the mirror, because both distort reflection. He works on his serenity like an artisan polishing glass with patience, precision, and humility, until his mind becomes so clear it reflects only light. When that clarity comes, you no longer ask why life is unfair. You understand that life doesn't reward or punish, it responds. And every experience, good or bad, is a chance to adjust the reflection. If something hurts you, ask which part of you still vibrates in pain. If something inspires you, ask which part of you is ready to grow. Every emotion is a clue, every encounter a lesson. The wise live attentive, not reactive. And in that awareness they find the balance others seek in luck. You attract what you reflect, because the energy you emit is a constant prayer. Your thoughts are words, your actions are declarations, your character is a testament. Each day you choose what you affirm through your presence. If your energy is chaos, the universe will echo chaos. If your energy is calm, you'll attract balance. There's no randomness here, only correspondence. That's why the Stoics' work isn't to search outward but to polish inward. When the mind shines clean, the world stops being a threat and becomes a luminous mirror. So stop asking, start embodying. Stop demanding, start reflecting. Because everything you seek already lives within you, waiting to be recognized. If you want to attract serenity, be serene. If you want to attract love, be love. If you want to attract respect, be respectful even with yourself. Life doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you project. And when you become the source, you stop being a seeker and become a lighthouse. That is the Stoic's goal, to shine without trying to attract, and yet attract everything. 10th Stoic advice. True love does not control, it accompanies. Love is not a chain, it is a shared path. It's not meant to possess, but to sustain. Yet we live in an age that confuses intensity with belonging and passion with control. People claim to love when, in truth, they fear losing. They call dependency devotion and label the loss of freedom as commitment. The Stoic understands it differently. For him, to love is to walk beside another without trying to lead them, to offer presence, not surveillance, to care without controlling, to stay without demanding permanence. Because love, when mature, doesn't suffocate, it breathes. Epictetus taught that nothing outside your control can ever truly be yours, not even a person. And within that simple truth lies the essence of free love. When you love from possession, you become a jailer. When you love from understanding, you become an ally. To love wisely is to accept that another's life belongs only to them, that their choices are not extensions of your desires. True love doesn't seek to shape the other, it seeks to inspire them to become their best self. That is the highest form of companionship, to respect another's process without trying to correct it. Most relationships fail because they confuse closeness with fusion. They think to love is to lose the self and become a we. But that we without boundaries ends up devouring individuality. The Stoic knows that only those who keep their center can give real love. That's why, before giving themselves, they strengthen themselves, not out of selfishness, but because they know that inner stability is the foundation of any healthy bond. Marcus Aurelius expressed it this way: love as if you might have to part. Not to live in fear, but to remember that the other's freedom is an essential part of love itself. Because a bond that can't tolerate independence isn't love. It's dependency disguised as romance. True love doesn't seek to fill emptiness, it shares fullness. It doesn't arise from lack, but from inner abundance. When you love out of need, you use the other as a means to feel complete. When you love from wholeness, you share what you already are. That difference changes everything. In the first, you fear the other leaving. In the second, you trust that if they stay, it's because they want to. Love that controls lives in constant worry. Love that accompanies lives in calm certainty. It doesn't fear distance, because connection doesn't depend on physical presence but on emotional coherence. Seneca wrote, "Love, when it is a virtue, does not enslave, it ennobles." Within that phrase lies an eternal lesson. Love should never diminish you, it should elevate you. The love that controls drains your energy. The love that accompanies multiplies it. When you're with someone who doesn't try to change you but seeks to understand you, you expand. And when you love without trying to mold, you find peace. That harmony only arises when both understand that love is not a transaction, but an act of shared freedom. The wise love not out of need, but out of choice. Not because they lack something, but because they choose to share their abundance. True love requires emotional maturity, and maturity is born from mastery. You cannot love freely if you don't master your impulses, your jealousy, your fears. The one who fears losing tries to control. The one who trusts accompanies. Love that controls is born of ego. Love that accompanies is born of soul. The ego wants to possess to feel safe. The soul wants to see growth to feel alive. That's the difference between a bond that suffocates and one that inspires. The Stoic chooses to love with clarity, not confusion. He knows control is a symptom of fear, and fear a form of weakness. Serenity, by contrast, is the language of conscious love. In practice, to love without control means to accept uncertainty. It means letting go of the illusion of permanence, allowing the other to change, to evolve, even to walk away if that's their path. It's not resignation, it's respect. The wise understand that nothing meant for them will ever demand they lose their peace to keep it. That's why, when they love, they don't clench their hand, they open it. Because what is truly loved doesn't need to be bound. It only needs to be cared for. Love that accompanies doesn't promise forever. It promises conscious presence. And that promise, when sincere, is worth more than any oath. Love that controls fears freedom because it doesn't trust its own worth. It believes that without control the bond will fade, that without watchfulness desire will die. But the opposite is true. Control kills what it seeks to protect, while trust strengthens it. When you allow another to be who they are without forcing them into your expectations, you create a space of respect where love grows without pressure. That trust can't be demanded, it must be cultivated. It's born from the inner certainty that, whatever happens, you will remain whole. And that certainty is the gift only free love can give. The Stoic doesn't seek perfect relationships, he seeks conscious ones. He knows that even in love there will be conflict, misunderstanding and distance, but he doesn't dramatize the inevitable. He doesn't expect another to be the source of his happiness, because his happiness depends on nothing external. He loves freely, and that freedom is contagious. Those who feel loved without conditions blossom. Those watched with suspicion wither. To love truly is to allow the other to grow, even when their growth doesn't always include you. Because if love cannot survive autonomy, it was never love, it was attachment. Epictetus insisted that the true test of mastery is remaining serene in loss. To love without fear of losing is the summit of emotional freedom. Not because it doesn't hurt, but because love isn't measured by duration but by depth. To love with detachment isn't coldness, it's understanding. It's realizing that nothing and no one can belong to you, and that even the most beautiful things in life are fleeting. When you accept that, you love better. You stop demanding impossible promises, stop carrying others' guilt, stop drowning in reproach. You simply give thanks for what was, and keep walking with serenity. Stoic love leaves no wounds, it leaves gratitude. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul of the free man is unconquerable." That invincibility doesn't come from hardness, but from clarity, from knowing how to love without possessing, to give without expecting, to care without depending. In that clarity there is peace, and where there is peace, there is permanence. Because bonds built on freedom don't break, they evolve. True love doesn't fear distance or change, because its roots aren't habit but choice. It's a love renewed each day not because it must, but because it chooses to. Love that accompanies doesn't seek to save it, seeks to share the journey. It doesn't promise constant happiness, but offers sincere presence. It doesn't demand perfection, but cultivates understanding. It doesn't shout, it listens. It doesn't impose, it proposes. And in that quiet humility lies its greatness. To love this way takes courage, because it demands vulnerability without attachment. But the Stoic doesn't fear vulnerability, he honors it. He knows that openness without dependency is the purest form of strength, because only those who can be alone can love without fear. True love needs no proof, it's recognized in the calm it leaves behind. It's the comfortable silence that doesn't need filling, the gaze that doesn't need convincing, the companionship that doesn't invade. When you love from freedom, the other doesn't become your refuge from the world, but your companion in it. Someone with whom to share what you've learned, not someone you rely on to feel complete. To love without control is to understand that every soul has its own destiny, and your role is not to direct it, but to honor it. So if ever love feels more like pressure than embrace, pause. Not everything that hurts is deep, nor everything that binds is love. Remember, the love that enslaves takes your power away, and the love that accompanies returns it. The love that demands confines you, and the love that understands sets you free. Only those who are free can love without fear, because true love doesn't need to control to feel secure, it's enough simply to be. And that presence, steady and serene, is the highest form of companionship the human soul can offer, when the soul learns not to need. There comes a moment in life when you no longer try to convince anyone, hold on to anyone, or prove anything. A point along the path when you understand that true freedom doesn't lie in the absence of bonds, but in not fearing their loss. When you no longer love to fill a void, but to share fullness. When you no longer speak to explain who you are, because your silence already says it all. That moment is rare, but once it arrives, nothing is ever the same. Because you discover that calmness was never the absence of emotion, it was maturity. And that love, once it stops being a struggle, becomes a path. For years we believed that intensity was the measure of truth, that the deeper the pain, the more real the feeling. That the loves that burn are the ones that leave a mark. But the weary soul learns something else. That peace can also be profound, that silence can also move you. That quiet love is not less fire, it's fire contained, governed, lucid. Stoicism doesn't teach you to repress. It teaches you not to make your heart a hostage. It shows you that strength doesn't lie in enduring everything, but in knowing when to step away without resentment. That the true conquest is not winning an emotional battle, but keeping serenity when everything around you urges you to lose it. Think of all the things that once drained you, arguments that led nowhere, relationships you mistook for destiny, people you thought you loved, but only needed. Each of those experiences was a teacher. They showed you where you surrendered your power, which part of you still craved approval, which wounds still spoke through your voice. Love tests you not when it arrives, but when it leaves. It strips you bare, tears off your masks, confronts you with yourself. And there, in that nakedness, you discover the hardest love of all self-love. Not the kind printed on empty quotes, but the kind built in silence, in long nights, in firm decisions where the soul chooses never to betray itself again. Seneca said that the wise do not fear loss, because they know that nothing truly theirs can ever be taken away. That simple yet merciless truth changes the way you love. You start to see relationships as gifts, not entitlements. You begin to let go without bitterness, to feel gratitude even for what hurt, because you understand that nothing was in vain, that every bond served its purpose. Some taught you tenderness, others taught you limits, others showed you what you no longer wish to repeat. Love ceases to be a refuge and becomes a mirror. And that mirror reflects, again and again, the most important question of all. Who are you when no one is holding you up? The Stoic doesn't flee from love, but neither does he surrender blindly. He loves with the lucidity of someone who has seen the price of attachment. He loves with open eyes, a serene heart, a calm mind. He knows that nothing can blossom where there is control, that beauty arises only where there is space. And so his love doesn't suffocate, it inspires. It doesn't demand, it invites. It doesn't promise eternity, it promises presence. And that presence, when born of freedom, becomes immortal, because it depends neither on time nor on form. It remains even in distance, like a fragrance the soul recognizes without needing a name. To love this way takes courage few possess. It requires surrendering the need to be indispensable. It means accepting that you can love someone deeply and still let them go. It means learning to be with yourself without seeking distractions, without turning love into anesthesia. That is true strength, to look at solitude without fear and realize that you lack nothing, that it was never the other who completed you, it was you who forgot you were whole. And when you remember, when you return to yourself, solitude stops hurting. It becomes companionship. It becomes home. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a tranquil mind is the soul's safest refuge. That sentence might sum up everything. Because when you manage to keep your mind calm, no rejection can destroy you, no abandonment can empty you, no goodbye can fully break you. You still feel, of course, but you no longer overflow. You still love, but without losing yourself. You still give, but without betraying yourself. Love ceases to be a battlefield and becomes a spiritual practice. You no longer seek to be understood. You seek to understand. You no longer wait to be chosen. You choose to love unconditionally. You no longer need to control the outcome because you trust the process. And in that act of total trust, something shifts. You stop waiting and begin living. There comes a point when the soul stops asking and begins offering. When you no longer expect immediate reciprocity, because you know that everything given in virtue always returns, in one form or another. It may not come from the same person, nor in the same time, but it returns. Because the universe never forgets the energy born of sincere love. That is life's mystery. It always gives back what you reflect. So when you learn to love through freedom, you attract freedom. When you learn to let go, you receive peace. When you learn not to impose, you find reciprocity. Not because you chase it, but because you deserve it. True love is not measured by how long it lasts, but by how much it transforms. Not by promises, but by coherence. Not by what is said, but by what remains in silence. And that silence, when filled with calm rather than absence, becomes the soul's purest language. The Stoic, in his wisdom, loves without illusion, yet with hope. Not the naive hope that everything will be fine, but the mature hope that, whatever happens, he will remain at peace. Because he who masters his mind masters his destiny, and he who masters his destiny no longer fears love. So what is love when stripped of fear, ego, and the urge to control? Perhaps it's simply this: a presence that doesn't invade, a care that doesn't weigh, a giving that doesn't demand. Perhaps true love isn't holding on, it's allowing. Perhaps the greatest proof of love isn't endurance, it's letting go without closing your heart. Perhaps the strongest soul isn't the one that never suffers, but the one that learns not to become its suffering. Perhaps freedom isn't the absence of the other, but the ability to love them without dependence. And perhaps the most perfect love isn't the one that lasts forever, but the one that leaves a mark even when it ends. Because in the end, it all comes down to this: calm is the deepest form of love, and whoever masters it masters the art of living. You don't need eternal promises to feel whole. It's enough to be present, authentic, free. The rest, the time, the destiny, the path of the other, no longer belongs to you. You can only tend to the frequency from which you love, the way you look, the peace with which you part. And if you can do that with serenity, then you've understood the greatest lesson of Stoicism, that true love isn't sought, it's embodied. So if you're here, if you've reached these words, perhaps it's not by accident. Perhaps this is the sign you were waiting for to stop begging for love and start living it with calm. To release the rush, to stop looking back, to understand that you haven't lost anyone, you've been recovering yourself. If something inside you stirred as you listened, don't ignore it. Serenity is also a calling. Answer it. And if this reflection resonated with you, don't let it fade. Subscribe, share this message, and join us each week. Because there's a community growing, a community that doesn't seek noise, but depth. And if you're here, you're already part of it. Your voice is essential here. Every reflection strengthens and elevates our community, reflecting the true value of each individual and contributing to our shared Stoic identity. The reflection that receives the most support will be set as the standard of this community of Stoic minds, a community that does not flee from pain but walks through it with courage, with wisdom, with honor. We will see each other in our next gathering at Stoicism for Winners, where we will continue exploring the riches of Stoic wisdom applied to modern life. Now, take the opportunity to deepen your Stoic practice with new recommended podcast sessions. Follow us so you don't miss any reflection that could help you at just the moment when everything feels overwhelming. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we publish episodes designed to accompany you when life feels heavy, when it's hard to stay calm, when you need a word to remind you who you are. Not following us is to risk missing exactly that lesson that could bring back the peace you have been seeking. Until we meet again, remember, you are the sole owner of your perception, the creator of your peace, and the warrior of your own battle. This is the legacy of Stoicism, the art of being invincible.